on a talk on the way to good game audio, where we're going to take you under the hood for the whole like sound production process for game audio, like straight from like sound design all the way to implementation.
Before we start this session, we'd like to give a huge shout out to our industry collaborators. First off, hands up to UOW for hosting this event with us. And we'd like to give a shout out to UJAM Instruments for sponsoring some of the instruments for this session, for this demo. Our local distributor Music Bliss, also for aggregating our live stream and holding our products. Medibeats, Soundtrack, myself from Soundtrack, Game Audio Malaysia, GAMI, for this huge collaboration between all of us.
And time to introduce your wonderful speakers for today. And so starting off, we have Elmer Ho.
Thank you, Jens. So, hi everybody. My name's Elmer. Just call me Elmer. So I'm a music composer and audio director, a bit of a consultant here and there, video games and film music. And most of the time, I spend a lot of time, studying about how to improve the local industry in a sense, just bring out the awareness that we need to have for good game audio and good production audio in general. So I've did a little bit of my introduction in the previous session, so you guys can check that out. So with that said, you can ask me any questions you would like at all, except how old I am. And with that being said, without further ado, I'll pass this time to Jans as well.
Thank you very much. So hi guys, I'm Jans Lee. I'm a project manager over at Medibeats Productions, but I also do like sound design, audio editing, mixing, mastering, all the cool sound stuff. It's great to be here. So passing over to our wonderful in the game industry, Darshan Lee Nair.
Okay. Hi everyone, my name is Darshan. I graduated from KDU as a game designer, then worked in an audio post-production house as a project manager and sound designer for local games like Fires at Midnight, Re-Legend, Gigabash. And now I'm half of GAMI, and the other being Duncan. And now I'm also a freelancer doing sound design.
Right, thanks so much. So for everybody who's new here, who hasn't been to one of our talks before, we do have the first in the series called Productions Missing Link, Good Audio. So just for the benefit, just give you a little very quick intro of what we talked about in the last video, but of course there's a link to it in the description if you're interested in more detail. But we're just going to do a quick intro now, and then we'll get on to the live demo afterwards. All right. So what do we look for in like good sound of music? Asking our panelists.
So I'd say is to have like a good standard for what good sound and music is, like what's too loud, what's too soft, what plays well in context of either the game or the medium. Good examples I would use are examples like JoJo's shotgun sound effects for their punches, because you want to have like a signature for your game or your medium. So you hear like Zahando's bass boosted as effects, you know that okay, this belongs in a JoJo anime, or like even stuff like Mario and other games as well.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think that just jumping off of that, like, I guess you can essentially distill it into what is the sound and music that is most appropriate, what most fitting for what you want to achieve, and how effective that is. Like basically appropriateness of your project. You want it like to be a horror thing where it's going to be spooky and tense, or do you want it to be very like a chill, relaxing vibe game like Animal Crossing New Horizons? So it's fitting the vibe, I would say, of your project the most.
Yep. Yeah. I'd like to follow up with that, by saying that when we think about good audio and good music, we always think about the soundscape, like how it fits into the landscape. When you're playing a horror game, you don't expect some happy-go-lucky music. You do not expect some, what do you call that? We don't expect some jolly good music, especially when there's a jump scare coming up. We're expecting something dark. We're expecting something ambient. Of you, it needs to be something that fits in the context of what you're trying to do.
Yeah, great. Thanks so much, Emma. So moving on to next, like off-task questions for this thing. Like, why do we even use original music audio for like our projects? And I think like it starts like where you want to have a unique sonic signature for your work. Like if you're putting your time, you're investing your time, your effort, your passion into like a game or a film, you want it to be memorable, but you also want it to be unique. You want it to be you for the kind of work you're doing, like the identity of yourself or your studio. And so having original music and audio gives you that signature, makes it like recognizable. When you hear like the Star Wars theme, with the Darth Vader's like Imperial March, you instantly know it's that guy. You know what series it's from. You know like whether he's a villain or like a protagonist, and so all of that like gives the audience a lot more information and makes it memorable.
Also, having original music and audio, well, if we listen to a few very signature games or signature products, we know that, for instance, if we have the da 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 da, we know it's Harry Potter. If we hear stuff da 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 da, we know it's Mario. Again, having original music in your project will recognize even after maybe how long has Mario been around? 30 years? Yeah, 30 years, right?
Yeah.
So technically, like it's been around for quite some time. Even so, until today, we still remember the original theme song for Mario or even Zelda. Actually, yes,
So
I
like
see. I see in the chat that somebody says "happy-go-lucky" music used in the right context could be scary. Yes, there are cases like that, but we'll get to that later.
So bouncing off Elmer's points, like not only that, you can't get everything you need from just like library tracks or so. Like sure you can do that, but you may need to find the best fit. But at a point like you have to know how to squeeze it in also to your projects. Using a few examples, like unless you build the animation around the sound, it is to have like a relationship or like it has to go hand in hand, animation, sound, and like how the gameplay goes, the flow. And that's why it's also important to start early and to work together, like start thinking about what kind of music, what kind of audio, how you want your sound to be like as early as possible. Great studio I like to use as an example are Supergiant games like Bastion, Pyre, Transistor, Hades, all like superb games.
Yeah, like there is like sometimes you need to use library tracks, but like if you're investing so much time just trying to edit this temp track down to fit and it doesn't quite give the vibe you want, and then you got like search for another sound, it's like that is time and effort you could have invested in just like finding something unique and original for your work. So it's also like that trade-off of what best works for your project, and like if you're gonna do a cool thing, like make it original.
Yep, it is. So that's a very interesting situation. Okay, but like again, with having an audio digital signature, it is something that's very unique to a game. We did mention quite a bit about this when we first talked about it. Do check it out in our first stream actually, and it's on our channel, so check in the description.
Yeah, so we're gonna move on. Just like one last question of like anything the producer needs to prepare for the audio team. Yeah, especially like the game dev if you're giving stuff to a sound designer or composer.
Right. So regarding this, like we're gonna do a little bit of a demo later for everybody here, just to give everyone context. There is quite a bit of things we need to prepare for the audio team, and I think Darshan will be will be the one to present it to you guys later. So look forward to that.
We'll put a pin in that as we move on to the last question of like what is the workflow like, and we're going to show this in our live demo this time. But just a super quick like intro of what the timeline's gonna look like. Well, it's different between linear and interactive media. Like if you're doing a film or animation, it's very linear. Like there's a lot of very certain phases. But interactive media like games and stuff has a different phase. Just very quickly going through this. So this is a linear project. You got a film, you got a video. You start with like development, you get the script and stuff, financing, you got pre-production, you work out your direction, your location sound, production, which is where the actual recording and scoring and sound design happens. Sound recording happens. And then in post-production, then you have sound design, Foley, maybe some dialogue replacement, editing, mix and master. But it's all, as you can see, in a very like linear graph. It just goes across in time. Games, which is our focus today, is a bit different. Because the development is happening continuously throughout the project, your sound team is also going to need to work continuously. So we tend to do this in batches, where we get a bit of the spotting at the start for, let's say, level 1, and then the whole sound team just works continuously until we finish that level, and then we get level 2 out as the devs finish coding it, and then we go to the next one. And it's the same for like each level until you get to the final post-game mastering and finalization.
So for today, I think we're going to be focusing a lot more for the interactive media's point of view.
And so here's just some asset list examples. So Darshan will be able to tell you more about this one.
Yeah. Okay. So this is the asset sheet that my team made back when I was in KDU doing FYP. So that little paper character there, the pog, that's paper versus machine, my old project. So that is my old asset sheet, and that is a old checklist. The point of that is that asset sheets can evolve, and I have whatever I've learned, I have still been using now in the industry as well. Okay, so that's like another asset sheet and it's like a Gantt chart, I think. Yeah. So that's like to keep track of the schedule, who's doing what, who's responsible for what. Yeah. So now this is like one of the more recent projects that I've done in the industry itself. So the asset sheets can look different as well, and it will depend on what kind of projects you're doing and what your client needs and what the team needs at the time. Some sheets I like to coordinate using colors and using like so on and so forth. So that's the checklist, that's the schedule. You can customize it to how you like to have it in. There's no right or wrong way of doing it. As long as it's efficient to you and your team, then that's fine. Something to keep in mind is just have like a schedule and a checklist. Like something to just keep track of who is doing what and when who is doing what as well.
Yep. So this we also covered in our previous talk, and we do recommend everybody to check that one out because like I think there was quite a lot we covered regarding like all these.
Yeah, and so today our live demo is going to show you basically this process of starting from like you get your direction, your brief from the directors, and then you go from sound designer, in this case Darshan, then we'll move over to music with Elmer, and then it heads over to me in audio implementation for the game.
Yep. So just bear in mind that everything in this tree that you see right now goes to a bigger team. Okay. Sometimes, again, if your team is smaller, like an indie team, one person is expected to carry more than one hats. So you would see sometimes the music director doing the arranging as well, or the sound designer taking on Foley and dialogue as well. And sometimes they're even the mix engineer. It really depends on the type and scope of projects. But this is a overall idea for a much bigger project scale. We can even go as big as like 100 people if you include the whole orchestra, if ever that's needed.
Just one last thing we're going to mention is the final part of like this whole production process, which is mastering. And different types of media, whether linear or interactive, are going to have different platforms. So like, if you're doing film or video, like it'll go on YouTube or Vimeo. Or if it's audio only, maybe Spotify. But that's going to be like a certain amount of mastering, certain amount of compression compared to cinema, which you always notice is like a lot more larger dynamic range than you would expect from YouTube. Whereas games, interactive media, that one you guys already know. It comes on PCs, they'll put it on like mobile games or like your consoles, PS4, Nintendo Switch, I think PS5 out these days now, VR as well as the thing. So how many speakers it has and what platform it's going to be on all affects how it's mastered. But today, we're going to focus on the production process. So let us show you a wonderful live demo of everything like starting from like sound design for a game.